The sky above Beijing was painted in molten shades of orange and gold as the last light of day sank behind the skyline. From the grand glass doors of the Horizon Hotel, billionaire Ethan Caldwell stepped out, his tailored navy suit glinting in the evening glow. The flashes of cameras erupted instantly, bouncing off the chrome pillars and luxury cars that lined the driveway. Ethan gave his usual polite nod to the press. He was used to the noise, the flashing bulbs, the endless attention. As the youngest tech magnate to make the global billionaire list, he had spent the last decade surrounded by power, luxury, and false smiles. Tonight was supposed to be another of those nights, a dinner meeting with powerful investors from Shanghai, who wanted to secure a stake in his latest innovation. 2 black sedans waited near the entrance. The first one idled quietly. The second stood ready behind it. 4 bodyguards in identical suits flanked the cars, expressionless behind dark sunglasses even as twilight deepened. They stood perfectly still, professional, confident. An unreadable dot. At the far edge of the driveway, a young woman swept the marble steps of the hotel. Her uniform was plain pale blue shirt, black apron, name tag that read Mei Lin. She had been working at Horizon for 3 years, silently watching the comings and goings of people far richer and louder than herself. Nobody paid attention to the cleaning staff. To most guests, they were invisible, but Mei Lin noticed everything as she worked. She overheard snatches of conversations, some in English, others in Mandarin, sometimes Cantonese or Korean. Languages were her quiet gift. While others saw her as a simple cleaner, she secretly loved listening, learning, connecting the dots. Words were her window to the world, so when 2 of the suited guards leaned closer and whispered rapidly in Mandarin, she didn't just hear the sound, she understood every word. "Make sure he enters the second car," said one. His tone clipped and cold. "The package is armed. Once he's inside, we move," replied the other. Her broom froze her breath caught. She glanced up from beneath her lashes. They didn't notice her. The words replayed in her head. "The package is armed." It could only mean one thing. Her pulse quickened. She looked toward the first car, the one the guards were subtly steering the billionaire toward. Inside, she could see a faint red flicker beneath the seat, something she might have dismissed any other day. But tonight, her instincts screamed otherwise. Ethan was only a few steps away, phone in hand, ready to slide into the back seat. Mei Lin's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She had a choice: stay silent and safe, or speak and risk everything. Without thinking further, she dropped her broom, rushed forward, and said in a trembling voice, "Sir, please, don't get in that car." The world seemed to stop. Even the guards turned. And for the first time that evening, the billionaire truly looked at her. To be continued in Part 2, story by Pure Hub Kindness. For a moment, no one spoke. The sounds of the city, honking cars, camera clicks, murmuring reporters, all seemed to fade into silence. Ethan Caldwell stood frozen, half turned toward the trembling young woman who had just called out to him. The urgency in her voice, the terror in her eyes, it wasn't the kind of panic you could fake. "Excuse me," he asked, lowering his phone, his brows furrowed in confusion. "What did you just say?" Mei Lin swallowed hard, her throat dry. Her voice came out shaky but determined. "Please, sir, don't get in that car. It's not safe. I heard them. They said something." The nearby guards shifted uneasily. Their polished shoes clicked against the pavement as one of them stepped forward. Expression firm and professional. "Mr. Caldwell," he said in perfect English, "this woman is just hotel staff. She's mistaken. The area is secure." But Ethan didn't move. He glanced between the guard and Mei Lin, watching both closely. Years of corporate negotiation had taught him one priceless skill: how to read people. The waitress was terrified but sincere. The guard, however, had the kind of tension in his shoulders that no real professional should show. "What did they say?" Ethan asked, his tone suddenly serious. Mei Lin hesitated, glancing nervously at the men in black. "They spoke in Mandarin," she said softly. "They said, move him into the second car. The package is armed." The taller guard's jaw tightened. "Ridiculous," he said coldly. "Sir, the cars were both cleared by our security team." Ethan raised a hand, cutting him off. "I never told you there were 2 cars," he said quietly. A flicker of surprise crossed the man's face, so brief most wouldn't notice. But Ethan did. His instincts screamed at him now. Something wasn't right. The tension thickened like fog. Reporters sensed the change and began murmuring, snapping photos again. The guards exchanged looks. One subtly pressed his earpiece. Ethan's voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Thank you," he said to Mei Lin, then turned toward the first car. "Actually, I think I'll take the other one tonight." "Sir, I strongly advise," the guard began. But Ethan was already moving. He walked straight past the car they'd been steering him toward, ignoring their protests, and opened the door to the second vehicle himself. Mei Lin held her breath. The guards froze, uncertain. "Drive," Ethan ordered his driver quietly as he climbed in. The driver nodded and started the engine. And then, in the very next instant, a blinding flash erupted from the car he was supposed to enter. The explosion roared through the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Glass shattered. Flames burst upward, devouring the luxury sedan in seconds. People screamed and scattered. The blast's shockwave knocked Mei Lin backward, sending her crashing to the pavement. Ethan's car screeched to a halt just yards away. Smoke filled the night sky as alarms wailed across the hotel entrance. He threw the door open and stepped out, his heart hammering in disbelief. The first car, the one he had nearly entered, was now a burning wreck, and standing amid the chaos, Mei Lin looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes, the waitress who had just saved his life. The explosion echoed through the heart of Beijing like a thunderclap, a brutal reminder of how fragile life could be. The heat hit Ethan Caldwell's face as he stumbled backward, his vision blurring from the brightness of the flames. The once sleek luxury sedan was now a ball of fire, twisted metal groaning under its own wreckage. People screamed. Security guards shouted orders. Hotel staff rushed out in panic, while sirens wailed in the distance. The smell of smoke and burning fuel filled the air. Ethan's driver slammed the car door open and yelled, "Sir, get down. There might be another blast." But Ethan didn't move. His mind replayed the moment over and over, the voice of the young woman, trembling yet sure. "Please, don't get in that car." If she hadn't spoken, he would be ashes now. Scattered across the pavement, he scanned the chaos until he spotted her. Mei Lin was lying near the hotel steps, her apron covered in dust, a shallow cut bleeding just above her brow. Without a second thought, Ethan sprinted toward her, ignoring his bodyguards shouting behind him. He knelt beside her and gently lifted her up. Hey, stay with me. "You're okay," he said, his voice shaking more than he wanted to admit. Her eyes fluttered open. Did it happen?" she whispered, dazed. Ethan nodded. "You saved me. You saved my life." Mei Lin tried to sit up, wincing. "I heard them talking. I didn't know if you'd believe me." "I didn't," Ethan admitted softly, "but I trusted you anyway." The flashing lights of police cars and ambulances painted the street red and blue as first responders arrived. Ethan's personal security details surrounded them. But two of the men, the same ones who'd whispered earlier, were nowhere to be seen. "Find those guards." Ethan barked to his head of security, his voice now sharp with fury. "Now?" "Yes, sir." The man responded, already on his radio. As the crowd pressed back, Ethan guided Mei Lin toward the safety of the hotel lobby. She trembled as they walked, her nerves barely holding together. Maybe I misunderstood," she said in a shaky breath. "I almost didn't say anything." He looked down at her, eyes full of something rare, genuine gratitude. "You didn't misunderstand. You were the only one who saw through it, the only one who listened." Inside the hotel, paramedics checked them both. Mei Lin sat wrapped in a blanket, sipping water, still pale from shock. Ethan stood nearby, pacing, his phone buzzing endlessly with calls from the media and his business partners. But he ignored them all. When the police asked questions, Ethan's words were simple. "Two men posing as my guards. They were not part of my official team. They planned to kill me. She," he said, pointing to Mei Lin, "saved my life." Mei Lin lowered her gaze, embarrassed by the attention. She wasn't used to being seen, not like this. But for the first time in years, Ethan Caldwell felt something deeper than success, deeper than ambition. It was humility. And as smoke still curled from the wreck outside, he realized that his life, his billions, his reputation, his future now rested on the courage of one quiet waitress who refused to stay silent. By morning, the Horizon Hotel was surrounded by police vehicles, reporters, and security tape. The explosion had become the top story in every news outlet across Beijing. Billionaire Ethan Caldwell narrowly escapes car bomb attack. Helicopters hovered above, broadcasting live images of the scorched wreckage. But inside, the quiet, guarded suite on the 34th floor, the noise of the outside world seemed far away. Ethan sat near the window, his face pale from exhaustion. He hadn't slept all night. His mind kept circling back to the same haunting thought, how close he had come to dying. Mei Lin sat across from him, wrapped in a white blanket, her dark hair tied loosely. She looked small in the oversized chair, her hands gripping a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Every so often, she glanced toward the door as uniformed officers came and went, questioning witnesses. Ethan's chief of security, Daniel Reyes, entered the room with a grim expression. "Sir, we've confirmed it," he said quietly. "The two men weren't part of your official team. Their IDs were fakes, near-perfect forgeries. Whoever sent them knew your schedule, your habits, even your security rotations." Ethan clenched his jaw. Someone fed them information from the inside. Daniel nodded slowly. "Most likely, we're tracing the communication logs now." Mei Lin looked between them, uncertain if she should speak. "So, they really meant to kill you?" she asked softly. Ethan turned toward her. The usual corporate sharpness in his eyes was gone. Instead, there was gratitude and quiet disbelief. "Yes," he said. "And if you hadn't spoken up, they would have succeeded." Mei Lin lowered her gaze. "Anyone would have done the same." Ethan gave a faint smile. "No, most people wouldn't have risked their life for a stranger." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Outside, The city was waking, traffic beginning to hum again, life moving on as though nothing had happened. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. Daniel cleared his throat and handed Ethan a tablet. "You'll want to see this." The car's onboard GPS was rerouted remotely an hour before the explosion. It was programmed to stop under an overpass near the river, isolated, perfect for a detonation. Ethan's stomach turned. "They were planning to kill me there, not here." But something triggered it early. Mei Lin whispered, "Maybe, because you didn't follow their plan." Ethan looked at her in quiet awe. She was right. Her warning hadn't just saved him from a bomb, it had disrupted an entire operation. Later that afternoon, when the police were done with their questioning, Ethan approached Mei Lin again. "You should stay somewhere safe. My team will arrange it." She shook her head quickly. "No sir, I can't afford that. I'll just go home." Ethan paused. "Not this time," he said firmly. "Someone tried to kill me, and you're the reason I'm alive. That makes you my responsibility now." She blinked in surprise. "Why would you do that for me?" He smiled faintly. "Because kindness should go both ways." And for the first time since the blast, Mei Lin smiled, to a small, hesitant smile that carried more strength than she realized. 3 weeks had passed since the explosion outside the Horizon Hotel, yet its echoes still lingered in Ethan Caldwell's mind. The newspapers had moved on to fresher scandals, but for Ethan, life didn't return to normal. It couldn't. Every decision, every handshake, every new face now came with a whisper of doubt. Who can I really trust? But amid the chaos of investigations, police reports, and corporate fallout, one name stayed constant in his thoughts: Mei Lin. After the attack, Ethan had insisted she stay in a secure guest house managed by his company. She had resisted at first, but when he told her it was temporary and for her safety, she reluctantly agreed. During those days, they spoke often, short conversations at first, then longer ones had drifted into stories of family, dreams, and choices. Mei Lin told him she had once studied languages at a small university, but had to drop out when her mother fell ill. Working as a hotel cleaner had been her way to keep the bills paid. "I always thought I'd go back," she said one evening, staring at the city lights. "But life doesn't always wait for you." Ethan had listened silently. He saw something rare in her, not just courage, but humility, the kind that no amount of money could buy. So one morning, when she was preparing to return to her old job at the hotel, Ethan handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked, frowning in confusion. "Something that belongs to you," he said simply. Inside was a full scholarship certificate to the Beijing School of International Studies, covering her tuition, housing, and expenses for 4 years. Below the printed letter was his signature. Her hands trembled as she read. "This must be a mistake." "It's not," Ethan said gently. "You risked your life to save mine. The least I can do is make sure you get the future you deserve." Tears welled in Mei Lin's eyes. "I didn't help you for money or rewards, Mr. Caldwell." "I know," he replied with a small smile. "That's why you deserve it." A week later, as she packed her few belongings, reporters had already begun sharing her story. The world was fascinated, the humble waitress who saved a billionaire. But she refused every interview. "I'm not a hero," she told them quietly. "I just did what was right." Ethan, however, didn't stay silent. At a press conference, he spoke before cameras and investors from around the world. "We measure intelligence in degrees, and success in dollars," he said. "But real wisdom comes from courage, from people like Mei Lin, who speak when it's hardest to be heard." The clip went viral overnight. The name Mei Lin became a symbol of bravery and conscience. Messages poured in from around the world, calling her the voice that saved a life. When Ethan showed her the articles, she laughed softly. "The world exaggerates," she said. "Maybe," Ethan replied, smiling. "But sometimes, exaggeration is just another word for inspiration." Their story became more than just news. It became a lesson that kindness and courage, no matter how small, can ripple through the world in ways no one expects. And that message was proudly shared by Pure Hub Kindness. 5 years later, the chaos of that fateful night had become a distant memory, but its consequences had changed lives forever. Beijing's skyline had grown even taller since then, glittering with new towers that symbolized progress and ambition. Among them stood the glass-fronted headquarters of Caldwell Global Innovations, now one of the world's leading ethical tech firms. Its mission statement, proudly displayed in the lobby, read, "Technology serves humanity best when guided by conscience." That line was inspired by one person, Mei Lin. Ethan often smiled when he saw it. Every time he read those words, he was reminded of the trembling voice that had once stopped him from stepping into death. He had since dedicated much of his company's work to promoting honesty, human rights, and transparency, values that had been born out of a single act of courage. Meanwhile, Mei Lin had become something extraordinary herself. With the scholarship Ethan provided, she graduated top of her class in international relations and linguistics. She now worked with the United Nations as a translator and cultural liaison, bridging gaps between diplomats from different corners of the world. Her intelligence, kindness, and grace had earned her quiet respect among leaders and activists alike. but she remained humble. Whenever someone asked about her journey, she would smile and say, "Kindness is a language that doesn't need translation." One evening, at a grand humanitarian gala in Hong Kong, their paths crossed again. The hall sparkled with chandeliers and laughter. But the moment Ethan saw her across the crowd, it felt like time folded in on itself. Mei-Lin looked radiant in an elegant ivory gown, her hair pinned neatly, confidence glowing in her posture. She spotted him too, and that familiar warmth returned instantly. They walked toward each other, smiling like old friends who had shared a lifetime. "I hardly recognized you," Ethan said, his voice soft with pride. Mei-Lin laughed lightly. "That's because I'm not holding a broom this time." They both chuckled, their eyes reflecting the years of change and gratitude between them. When the host invited Ethan on stage to speak, he gestured toward her from the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, 5 years ago, I nearly lost my life because I trusted power over instinct. But I was saved, not by a guard or a machine, but by a young woman who chose courage over fear. Tonight, I dedicate this award to her, the reminder that true intelligence lies in compassion." Applause filled the hall. Mei-Lin's eyes glistened, not from pride, but from quiet emotion. Afterward, as the crowd mingled, Ethan approached her once more. "You know," he said, "you changed more than my life that night. You changed how I see the world." Mei-Lin smiled. "And you changed mine. Because you proved that the powerful can still listen." The night ended with laughter, gratitude, and a shared promise to continue using their voices for good. As the lights dimmed, a new headline began to spread across social media. "Waitress who saved a billionaire now saves lives across the world." And beneath it, one message stood out, a message that echoed the heart of their story. Courage has no class, and kindness has no price. A timeless story shared by Pure Hub Kindness, where real humanity still shines brighter than wealth or fame.